Good afternoon and welcome to Biztech's Asian Midday Market Watch, powered by Rajhi Bank, Malaysia. Vishnu Varathan, Head of Economics and Strategy at Mizuho Bank out of Singapore, is our guest today. Vishnu, great to have you on the show.
Always good to be here, Brian. Thanks for having me.
Now, Vishnu, I'm going to start by taking a look at crypto markets. Bitcoin is at 19,116. It's down 0.61%. Ethereum is at 1,055.92. It's down 0.76%. Now, looking across to regional equity markets, we're going to start with Singapore, which is up 0.88%. We look at Bursa Malaysia, it's down 0.67%. Shanghai is up 0.18%. The ASX All Ordinaries is up 1.11%. The Nikkei is up 0.46%, bigger pardon, 0.49%. The Hang Seng is down 0.45%. And rounding up the market numbers, we've got the Kospi, which is down 0.93%. Now, Vishnu, what's your view on how markets have performed in the first half of today? The day where it's the 4th of July and US markets are closed today.
Yeah, so they're closed for Independence Day, and clearly we can see markets are still not quite independent from US risks, particularly the Fed risks. And the reason why markets are mixed, with some looking a little bit firmer, is perhaps because of the follow-through momentum from Friday in the US. And what's worth noting is the firmer equities in the US was because of soft spots in US ISM data, not despite of it. So markets are betting that if data is softening up, then the Fed need not be as aggressive, and so the recession risks from an overly brutal Fed tightening gets diminished at the margin. This is still a long shot, but I guess grasping hopes this is where it goes. But this is and the other thing to bear in mind is that we are all hoping to start on a fresh slate in the second half of the year, given how dismal the first half has been. But perhaps we are not out of the woods, and it's very important to watch what goes on in the policy space, commodities, energy prices, and so we're still left watching the same things, even if half the year has rolled by.
Now, and you mentioned a couple of key things that we need to watch out for, but what do you see the biggest risks in the second half of the year?
Well, I think in the second half of the year, and I'll start with Q3, the single biggest risk is that we are underestimating and under accounting for what liquidity drain due to quantitative tightening can result in particularly in terms of much tighter funding, and at times not being able to roll over funding needs in a timely manner, because despite on paper, despite the appearances of having still sufficient dollar funding on paper, the reality is that it's very unevenly spread across banks, and insofar as banks get more cautious, this may lead inadvertently to a bit of a liquidity squeeze, which in turn can translate into to some degree of contagion and chills in the market. So that's something we want to watch out for in the third quarter. For those watching closer to home at China, they want to see whether China stimulates its economy enough, given President Xi has suggested and has stuck to his around 5.5% growth target, saying it can be reached. So we are in pretty different dimensions, and it really, the question it begs us is which bunny who will be pulling out of which hat. After that, of course, like cats, right? We need to check the bunny for a pulse, because the underlying momentum may not be maintained.
Okay, then now closer to short-term things that we need to watch out for this week. What are some key things we need to watch out for that could move markets?
I think when rolling into the middle of the week, so the US markets return on Tuesday. Wednesday, you get the FOMC minutes, so markets will be poring over the minutes to see just how much of dovish caveats there may be there, or at least thresholds in terms of what would get the Fed to be a lot more brutal or to dial back. I think some of the hope is that they can correlate that or connect that with some of the softer data to pacify themselves that the Fed may not tighten by as much. But the warning is FOMC minutes can be quite hawkish, given the rhetoric we've heard following the June FOMC. a lot is really hanging on unconditional tightening and things like that. And then just before that on Tuesday, we've got the RBA that's meeting. So the Australian Central Bank is expected to do another 50 basis point rate hike. That's pretty much priced in, but what they say in terms of guidance can lead to some volatility in the Aussie. And against the backdrop of weaker commodities, that could lead to a little bit of choppy moves. We've got Bank Negara Malaysia. We expect a 25 basis point and extension of much more gradual tightening. But again, I think a lot of the messaging in the rhetoric is what markets will be paying attention to against the backdrop of relief from oil, but yet underlying risks that continue to persist. So these are perhaps the main things that we are watching this week.
As always, Vishnu, thank you very much for your insights and thanks for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
We've been speaking to Vishnu Varathan, Head of Economics and Strategy at Mizuho Bank, on Biztech's Asian Midday Market Watch, powered by Rajhi Bank, Malaysia. I'm Brian Fernandez. This video will be on our various social media platforms as well as our website, www.biztech.asia. It will also be on Rajhi Bank's social media platforms. Please subscribe and like our various platforms. Thanks for tuning in.